August 22nd, 1986. A rescue team drives into Nyos village in Cameroon and finds something impossible. The street is full of bodies. People lying on the ground, animals collapsed mid-step. But there's no fire, no explosion, no bullet holes, just silence. The bodies look strange. Skin turned dark red, faces swollen, but no cuts, no burns from flames. The team checks for a gas leak, for poison, for anything that makes sense. They find nothing. By the end of the day, they count 1,746 people dead. Most of them were asleep when it happened. 4 people in Nyos village survived. Nobody knows why. The mystery spreads across 3 villages and 25 kilometers of countryside. What could kill that many people without leaving a single clue? The first investigators expected to find something they recognized. A chemical spill, a volcanic eruption, some kind of weapon. But Lake Nyos didn't fit any pattern they knew. The bodies told a confusing story. Victims had skin discoloration, like they'd been burned. But there was no heat source, no scorched clothing, no melted plastic. Survivors who made it to hospitals coughed up a white powder. They described a smell like rotten eggs mixed with gunpowder. Their lungs hurt, their eyes burned. Gilbert Kimar, one of the survivors, remembered hearing rocks fall into the lake the night before. There had been heavy rain. He woke up to the smell and felt his chest tighten. His neighbors were already dead. Papa Saboum found his wife on the floor that morning. He thought someone had poisoned her. Then he walked outside and saw the police commissioner's house. The man's wife was screaming. Her husband was dead too. So were the people next door and the family across the street. The investigators noticed something important. The deaths followed a pattern. They radiated outward from Lake Nyos. The gas, whatever it was, had flowed downhill like water. People in valleys died first. People on hillsides had a few extra minutes. Scientists ruled out a volcanic eruption quickly. There was no lava, no ash in the air, no earthquake recorded on any instrument. The ground hadn't even shaken. The chemical weapon theory collapsed just as fast. There was no delivery system, no political reason for an attack. And the gas had travelled too far, too evenly to be man-made. The breakthrough came from the lake itself. Scientists took water samples from different depths. At 330 feet down, they found something unusual. The water was saturated with carbon dioxide. Not a little. The maximum amount water can hold and under that much pressure. They tested the air near the lake. Pure CO2 at lethal levels. 16% concentration, enough to kill in minutes. The picture started to come together. Lake Nyos sits on top of a volcanic zone. Magma deep underground leaks carbon dioxide into the lake through cracks in the rock. The lake is 682 feet deep. The water at the bottom almost never mixes with the water at the top. For decades, CO2 had been building up down there, dissolving into the cold, pressurized water, waiting. Something triggered the deep water to rise. Maybe the heavy rain, maybe a small landslide, maybe just the weight of all that gas finally becoming too much. When the deep water rose even a few feet, the pressure dropped. The CO2 came out of solution. Bubbles formed. Those bubbles made the water lighter. Lighter water rises faster. More bubbles formed. The whole process fed itself. Within minutes, the entire lake overturned. Bottom water rushed to the surface. A fountain of gas and water shot 300 feet into the air. Then the CO2 did what carbon dioxide does. It sank. It's heavier than regular air. It flowed down the hillside like an invisible river. A cloud 150 feet thick, moving at 45 miles per hour, suffocating everything in its path. The forensic team had their answer. Lake Nyos had burped, and 1,746 people had died because of it. Lake Nyos didn't just happen to be dangerous. The geology made it a bomb waiting to go off. The lake sits in a volcanic crater. Deep underground, magma is still active. Not enough to cause eruptions, but enough to leak gas. Carbon dioxide seeps up through cracks in the rock and dissolves into the lake water. This happens in lots of volcanic lakes. But Lake Nyos had a specific problem. The lake is shaped like a bottle, narrow at the top, wide and deep at the bottom. 682 feet deep. The water at the surface never mixes with the water at the bottom. No currents, no circulation, just layers that don't touch. For decades, maybe centuries, CO2 kept dissolving into that deep water. Cold water holds more gas than warm water. Pressurized water holds more gas than surface water. The bottom of Lake Nyos was both. It was a perfect storage tank. By 1986, the deep water had reached its limit. It couldn't hold any more gas. The system was at critical pressure. Any disturbance could tip it over. We don't know exactly what triggered it. The heavy rain that night might have caused a landslide into the lake. Or maybe the rain just added enough weight to push the deep water up slightly. Or maybe it was a small earthquake nobody felt. The trigger doesn't really matter. Once the water started rising, physics took over. When deep water rises, pressure drops. When pressure drops, dissolved gas comes out of solution. Bubbles form. Those bubbles make the water even lighter. Lighter water rises faster. More bubbles form. The process accelerates. This is called a limnic eruption. It's like shaking a giant soda bottle, except the bottle is 682 feet deep and a mile wide. Within minutes, the entire lake overturned. Bottom water shot to the surface. The lake level dropped 3 feet as the gas escaped. Witnesses 25 kilometers away heard a rumbling sound. They saw a white cloud rise from the lake. The CO2 cloud was invisible once it spread out, but it was still there, 16% concentration. You need oxygen to live. When CO2 displaces the oxygen, you suffocate, fast. The gas flowed downhill following the terrain. It filled valleys, it hugged the ground. People in low areas died in their sleep. Animals collapsed mid-stride. Insects fell from the air. The gas hung around for hours before it finally mixed with enough regular air to become harmless. This wasn't the first time. In 1984, Lake Nyos, another volcanic lake in Cameroon, did the same thing. 37 people died. But nobody connected the two events until after Nyos. Scientists realized other lakes could do this too. They identified several dozen deep volcanic lakes around the world. The biggest threat is Lake Kivu. It sits on the border between Rwanda and Congo. 2 million people live on its shores. The lake holds 2,000 times more gas than Lake Nyos did. The solution is surprisingly simple. Install pipes that reach down to the deep water. Pump the water to the surface slowly. Let the gas escape in a controlled way. Between 2001 and 2011, engineers installed 3 pipes in Lake Nyos. At first, the fountain shot 160 feet high. By 2019, they barely bubbled. The degassing worked. CO2 levels dropped to safe ranges. But the area around Lake Nyos remains mostly abandoned. Civil war in the region has displaced the survivors again, and dozens of other volcanic lakes still haven't been treated. Lake Nyos proved that some disasters don't announce themselves. No fire, no explosion, just silence. The degassing pipes work, but only 3 lakes worldwide have been treated. Dozens more remain unmonitored.